feed rate is defined as the distance the cutting tool advances along the length of the workpiece for every revolution of the spindle. For example, if you have your feed rate set to 10 thou per rev, this means that the tool will advance 10 thou for every revolution of the spindle. Some general guidelines for feed rate are: for roughing, you want about 10 to 25 thou per rev, and for finishing, you want about 3 to 5 thou per rev. This really depends on your machine, on the rigidity of your setup, the type of cutting tool you have, but these are good general guidelines to get you started. Now we're going to go over to the lathe and see how to set this on the quick change gearbox. So now that we have our feed rate calculated, what I need to do is I need to refer to this chart to set up my quick change gearbox down here to get my desired feed, okay? So if I look at this chart, again, every machine is a little bit different, so refer to the operations manual if you have any questions. So if I look at this machine here, I have, let's say I'm gonna try to set my machine to 10 thou per revolution, okay? So I see an S8 right here, and I also see an IY. So IY S8 for 10 thou per rev, it would be, IY R8 for 20, IY T1 for 3 thou per rev. If I'm cutting a thread as well, I have this, this chart right here. So I have I and 2, okay? And then I have, if I want to set it to 20 threads per inch, it would be 2 BR3. But today we're just going to worry about the feed rate in inches per revolution. So again, 10 thou IY S8. So I'm going to drop this down here so I can see my quick change gearbox here. Okay, so I have a whole bunch of different letters for my different settings. So the first one I want it in I, and then I want it in Y right here. Again, you'll get a feeling for where it is. So what I typically do is move it all the way to the right, and then I kind of, Y is the second one, so I'll move it to that second one. Again, so I have my IY set, now I need S8, so I have S and then 8 here. So now I have my machine set, and it should be ready to feed. A couple things I want to keep in mind though is if I get this chuck spinning, okay, so I'm just going to hit the jog button here. If I get this chuck spinning, I have a feed rod. So I have a lead screw right here, which is for cutting threads, and I have a feed rod right here, which is in the middle. That feed rod needs to be spinning for me to engage my feed. So if I am seeing that chuck rotate, something is telling me this is, the gears aren't completely in mesh. So what I like to do is just hit this jog button, and I'm just making sure everything's in mesh here. So if you heard that little click, my eye was a little bit out of mesh. So now if I get this spinning, I can see my feed rod here rotating, okay? We also want to be really careful with this if you have a long smock or a long jacket. We want to make sure that that doesn't get caught in that rotating equipment. So that is how I set the feed rate on my machine.